Welcome, everyone. It's good to see everybody coming out for tonight's meeting. As always, the video of this meeting is streamed live on YouTube and will be available on Facebook and the Village website. I'd like to call the meeting to order and ask Village Clerk Paul Saladino to call the roll.
Trustee Augustine.
I'm here.
Trustee Gale.
Here.
Trustee McGee.
Here.
Trustee O'Brien.
Here.
Trustee Peterson.
Here.
Trustee Thompson.
Here.
President Kugler.
Here. And we have a full group tonight, so that's wonderful. And I'd like the audience to stand and Clerk Saladino to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'm going to jump right into the President's report. First, the village offices will be closed on Monday, November 11th, to celebrate Veterans Day. So I'd like to first start out by thanking all of our veterans for their service. We have a lot of employees in the village that have served, and obviously a lot of residents that are veterans, and so we do appreciate their service. Our next regularly scheduled meeting would be November 11th. In honor of Veterans Day, we're going to cancel that meeting. The fourth Monday of the month is in close proximity to Thanksgiving. So we put our heads together and decided to have one meeting in November on November 18th. So we're going to be meeting the third Monday in November. Regular office hours for village staff will resume on Tuesday, November 12th. Residents are encouraged, as always, to explore a variety of online services that will remain available throughout Veterans Day and the weekends and really any other time. Due to the normally scheduled meetings, again, we won't be meeting. The first one is canceled on November 11th. We will be meeting on the 18th. Today is National First Responders Day. When we have the opportunity to honor the men and women who act quickly in responding to our emergencies. So Chief, please let your departments know how much we really do appreciate their sacrifices, their diligence and professionalism in working for us. We're very fortunate to have the best firefighter, paramedics, police officers, and dispatch personnel dedicated to serving our community. On behalf of the village, I'd like to extend our sincere gratitude to them for their service, sacrifice, and commitment. And speaking of first responders, I'd like to exchange a congratulations to Deputy Chief Ewer and Sergeant Coleman on their recent accomplishments. On Thursday, Deputy Chief Ewer graduated from the Executive Management Program at Northwestern University Center for Public Safety. And that's really just to a great program that helps develop his skills for management. And then on November 8th, Sergeant Coleman will graduate from Northwestern School of Staff and Command, a very well-respected program. So I congratulate to both, and I thank them for their continued improvement in the service to the village of LaGrange. On Saturday, the LaGrange Police Department participated in the Drug Enforcement Association's National Drug Take-Back effort to collect unwanted and unused and expired medication. Thanks to the individuals in the department who helped arrange for the village's participation. If you are unable to make it on Saturday, residents can always drop off unused medication at any time at the police department, which has a permanent collection box located in the lobby and is open to the public. For more information, including a list of acceptable and unacceptable items, please visit the website. Thank you for all that came out and participated in the Ghostly Gourds Pumpkin Decorating Contest, which took place on Saturday. Children and their families had a great opportunity to decorate pumpkins, have lunch, treats, and watch a performance of Thriller by the Dance Center of LaGrange. I want to thank the LGBA for their efforts in planning and coordinating the event, and I know it was a success. The Fall Leaf Program continues through November 24th. Leaves will be generally collected every other week by Public Works Department for village streets. As a reminder, leaves should be raked to the curb. No bags or yard waste stickers are required. Please also keep garbage and recycling toters off the road in the parkway so that the trucks can come and pick up the leaves. We always encourage you to mulch your leaves when possible. It's great for the gardens. And again, LaGrange is trying to keep some leaves in the village for mulching purposes. Trick or treat, which is always a fun time. For all those looking to satisfy their sweet tooth, trick-or-treating hours on Halloween, Thursday, October 31, is 3 o'clock to 8 o'clock. Motorists, parents, and children are asked to be vigilant when driving or walking through the neighborhoods on Halloween. And from all of us at the village, we wish everyone a happy Halloween. Manager Knight, is there a manager's report?
Just wanted to wish everybody a happy Halloween from myself and from the staff.
Thank you. Moving right along, I'm going to ask if there's any public comments on matters on tonight's agenda, or should we first read the matters, I suppose, that are on the agenda? If Clerk Saladino, you could read the items on both under the consent and under the new business, I'd appreciate it.
Matters on the consent agenda will be considered by a single motion and vote because they already have been considered fully by the board at a previous meeting or have been determined to be of a routine nature. Any member of the Board of Trustees may request that an item be moved from the consent agenda to current business for separate consideration. Item A, a resolution authorizing the purchase of 3 2025 Chevrolet Tahoe vehicles from Carl Auto Group. Item B, a resolution approving a contract between the Village of LaGrange and Landscape Material and Firewood Sales, Inc. for 2024 leaf hauling services. Item C, an ordinance adopting various amendments to the Village of LaGrange Code of Ordinances regarding offenses. Item D, an intergovernmental agreement between the Illinois Department of Health Care and Family Service and the Village of LaGrange. Item E, October 14, 2024 consolidated voucher. Item F, minutes of the Village of LaGrange Board of Trustees meeting Monday, September 23rd, 2024. Current business. This agenda item includes consideration of matters being presented to the Board of Trustees for action. Item A, an ordinance adopting a comprehensive plan for the Village of LaGrange.
Thank you, Clerk Saladino. And at this time, I would invite the public to come up and share any comments regarding matters on tonight's agenda, including the continued comprehensive plan. Good evening, and if you could just speak into the microphone so we can hear.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Awesome. Let me just get clarity here. I'm here standing in response to current business item A, directly related to the comprehension plan.
And if you would just start by introducing yourself.
Absolutely. That's going to come as well.
Okay, take your time.
Just having a bit of a challenge with the electronic.
I understand
equipment. Okay, council. All right, good. Here we go. Hey, evening. I am Dr. Bessie Boyd, and I have resided as a homeowner at 234 Sawyer Avenue, LaGrange, for the past 29 years. And prior to that, as a student in district attending Congress Park Elementary School in Lyons Township. I resided at 34 East Avenue, LaGrange, Illinois. My parents and others that are here are homeowners as well. So I stand before you tonight as a longtime community member to voice my concerns as a homeowner, community member, and a realtor in regards to conversations in future real estate planning for the East Side LaGrange community. In addition to the plan for the East Side, my concerns come based on an article posted in the Patch on October 15th, 2024, entitled, "Could LaGrange East Side Change Under Plan?" A proposed LaGrange plan calls for allowing triplexes and fourplexes in a neighborhood on the village's east side. The neighborhood is in the village's northeastern corner and includes Hayes, Sawyer, and Washington Avenues. It is more diverse and generally has lower property values than the rest of the town. The last part, the lower property values, is an insult to me as a member of the East Side community and a homeowner in the East Side community. This statement within itself reminds me, and I would hope that it is not what once we called redlining. In case you are not following me, let me indicate what I mean. The term redlining comes from the New Deal in 1933 by the federal government, who developed maps of every metropolitan area in the country. And those maps were coded by, first, the Homeowners Loan Corporation, and then the Federal Housing Administration, and then finally, it was adopted by the Veterans Administration. And these color codes were designed to indicate where it was safe to insure mortgages. Anywhere African Americans lived and anywhere African Americans lived near were color-coded red to indicate to appraisers that these neighborhoods were too risky to insure mortgages. As we know now, redlining is a discriminatory practice that involves denying or limiting financial services to neighborhoods with a large population of racial and ethnic minorities. Redlining has been most prevalent in the United States and has primarily targeted African Americans. This practice has long-term effects on family wealth, as people who were unable to buy homes were unable to develop equity for their children and grandchildren. The Federal Reserve Board defines redlining as a form of illegal treatment. The courts have ruled that redlining on a racial basis is an illegal practice. The Fair Housing Act of 1968 made it legal for African Americans to buy homes in previously restricted areas. However, the homes are no longer affordable to the families that could have afforded them when whites were buying into the suburbs. As the village is aware, the East Side community has been predominantly African American, and now it has become a more diverse community. Where I have a question to begin, what data was used to determine that the East Side has a lower property value? As a realtor, when I'm comping a LaGrange home, I am not just comping the East Side, I am comping the entire LaGrange community. The article continues, now the neighborhood has a zoning designation that allows single-family housing and duplexes on the east side. Yes, it does, and I grew up in one of those duplexes at 34 East Avenue. The article also continues, during Monday's Village Board meeting, Trustee Glenn Thompson said it was just strange that allowing more duplexes and triplexes would only apply to the east side in a small strip along LaGrange Road. I further comment, what research was used to determine that these areas would be the best areas for this project? The article further states, if we're going to protect the east side, we need to protect the east side and not just turn it into a whole tear-down section, according to Thompson. You'll find a couple of houses for sale there now. A builder would jump and tear it down and build a threeplex or a fourplex in a heartbeat because he knows he can make his money back on it. Thank you, Mr. Thompson. I am one of those realtors who currently has a home listed at 26 Sawyer on the east side of LaGrange. Well, the article further states that the village president, Mark Kukler, said he shared Thompson's concerns, but he said some buildings in that area needed to be torn down because they are in bad shape. Well, President Kukler, I drive my community. I have not seen any buildings in our area that need to be torn down and that are in bad shape. The article further states that Thompson, Kukler, and Trustee Beth Augustine all expressed concerns that developers would end up taking big sections of the streets in the village allowed triplex and fourplex. But the village's community development director, Charity Jones, pointed to another provision of the proposed long-term plan. The development types, triplexes and fourplexes, are not anticipated or encouraged to be employed through large-scale development. Rather, these formats are intended for infill development on one or two existing lots. So even though Ms. Jones speaks of infill development, I'm wondering if this also applies to questions of a builder buying a small home, tearing it down, and building a multi-level home or a condo or townhome. So I want to now speak about the plan, the comprehensive plan. On page 27, the plan under community input says that some areas of the village were disconnected, specifically the South LaGrange Road area in the neighborhood east of the IHB, Indiana Harbor rail line, as we know, is the east side. Your plan also states there is a limited diversity of housing options and a high cost of housing. LaGrange is mostly built out and landlocked. Well, I ask of the board if there is little opportunity for growth. So then if we are close to landlocked, why would the village consider building on land in an area that is considered low property value? On page 22 of your plan, you state that the insight from a community is a critical element of every comprehensive plan, and the LaGrange plan was introduced to the community under the LaGrange Forward Comprehensive brand. And also the community input occurred through individual in-person interviews, focus groups and meetings, as well as virtually through the project website and other means over the course of the entire planning process. This included focus groups, stakeholders, interviews, pop-ups at the farmers market, community workshops, Grange Community Center Mosaic Project, and others. I applaud the village in reaching out to members of the community. However, I will submit to you that the fact that there are additional questions and concerns, specifically from members of the East Side community, indicating that these opportunities were not made fully clear to the concerned community members. But with that being said, I would like to request of the board to table or set aside the East Side portion of this plan until we who live in that community, the East Side, have the opportunity to further have conversation. And finally, on pages 38 and 39 of the LaGrange Comprehensive Plan, an architectural design was created using a current vacant lot on the corner of Callender and Hayes, which I believe the property owner is the Second Baptist Church of LaGrange. But I'm sure that the church gave you permission to use their property as an example in your architectural plan. However, if the property lots are available, what is the process? In other words, will the lots be sold to the village, or will the property owner sell the property to receive the highest market value? Will the units be considered affordable housing? And how will this change or impact the property values currently on the east side of LaGrange? And I thank the board for listening.
Thank you, Dr. Boyd.
My name is Janine Ferguson Marshall. I am the daughter of Harry and Anna Ferguson. Someone in my family has lived here in LaGrange since 1925. Every 15, 20 years, here we go again in front of the board to talk about how land will be used and how infill will occur. The last time this occurred, there was a program that was started called infill housing. I don't know whether anyone here on the board knew about this or was informed about how it worked, but new homes were built through the village. They helped to fund it. People who received this help then pay the village back for the property if that's what the village helped them with. And the homes were built. My concern right now is that after investing in that now you want to change the way the community has been formed from the standpoint of having single homes for people who wish to buy them. As Ms. Emerson said, they have, how can I say, a great diversity in our community now. We just got on our feet in the sense of being diverse. And if you start adding duplexes in the form of triplexes or quadplexes, you're destroying the density factor that is there right now. Density is also a form of environmental injustice. I don't know whether you're aware of that or not. But what I want to know is how this board worked with what their plan is and what factors they took into account when it comes to environmental injustice, because this part of the community has suffered that. That's why they did the infill housing. And if you haven't done any of that research, then you need to. Because I agree with Ms. Boyd, Ms. Emerson, that we need to set this aside and discuss it. Because just like with disabled people, you don't do anything for us without us. I'm sure you've heard that said before. And so there hasn't been enough notification to people to know what's going on. And I also feel that when it comes to other problems, is that one, the village has had trouble with flooding. We do not know what these large concrete buildings, because we have to think, where are they going to put their cars and that kind of thing. So where's that runoff going to go? Those lots that are empty have been catching a lot of the rain and stuff. So where is that going to go? How's that going to affect the community as a whole? And then the last thing that I want to say is that with the number of, how can I put it? With the diversity that we have in population, as well as in housing, do you realize that we have over 10 side-by-side duplexes already there? We have some 14 to 15 two-story duplexes there already. We also have several of those duplexes are for adults with disabilities. We are also taking care of the homeless in our area. So why again are we choosing this part of LaGrange to change it again in a way that'll be detrimental to the people that are already here? And you can be upset about it. You can think, why do I have to listen to this? But you do. Because we will pay taxes here too. Not only do we pay taxes, but we participate in different ways in the community things that happen here, at schools and everything else. That's all I have to say. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Ferguson Marshall.
Good evening. My name is Peg Moster, and I'm a member of the League of Women Voters of the LaGrange Area Housing Committee. And with me tonight are three of my fellow League committee members. Thank you. Janice Miller, Jerry Allers, and Kurt Hansman, seated right over here. And with us in spirit are three other members who are out of town visiting grandchildren or on holiday, but who join us in our statement. And thank you to Dr. Boyd and the prior speaker, because a lot of what they spoke to, we have been speaking to for a number of years. You've met with us often over the past few years as we shared with you the results of our research on the challenges communities, and specifically LaGrange, face in housing. We did this expecting that the housing problems identified in the 2005 plan over 20 years ago, or close to 20 years ago, would find actions leading to resolution in this plan. It was encouraging to see the effort put forth by the village staff and the consultant group, TESCA, to reach out to village residents. There were public occasions, as was mentioned earlier, for residents to share their views in person as well as online, and reflected deep concern on their part about housing. Over the course of the past two village board meetings, you've engaged in a review of the draft LaGrange Forward Comprehensive Plan. At various stages of the plan development, we have advocated for housing to have its own chapter because we felt it deserved it. That did not happen. In Chapter 3, the Community Character chapter, where the writers addressed housing, it says, to further support housing affordability, the village should consider conducting a housing needs assessment. We want to see a task force set up as soon as possible, certainly within the first year following your approval of the plan, to conduct this housing needs assessment and to hear the voices of people on all sides. Historically, LaGrange has been a community accessible to people of varying means. This aspect of the character of LaGrange has economically suffered from the proliferation of luxury rental apartments and new high-end townhouses, as well as the teardowns and or additions that increase the value of single-family homes, but has led to residents being unable to stay and new homeowners' inability to buy a home in LaGrange. According to a recent study by the Institute for Housing at DePaul University, LaGrange housing prices increased by 110% between the year 2000 and 2022. In the last 2 years, property taxes have skyrocketed, as we all know, and the cost of living has increased appreciably. The effect has been that housing has become increasingly unaffordable for current middle and low-income residents. You could show that you listened to and heard the feedback from residents on affordability by taking the action necessary to address this problem in a meaningful way in the new plan. We respectfully request that you do so. Also, a comprehensive plan should not be a document that once completed and approved by this board disappears with no scheduled review. Rather, a review should occur at a minimum of once a year, if not more often, and the board should set the schedule for such reviews as part of their approval. Thank you. Oh, by the way, just for the record, for whoever does translate all of this into minutes, my name is Peg, not Peggy, no disrespect meant. And my last name is Moster. It's spelled M-O-S-T-E-R, and it's pronounced like you would pronounce Foster, only it's Moster. Thank you.
Thank you, Peg Moster. We appreciate it.
Hello. My name is Sergio Mercado, and I live at 34 Sawyer Avenue on the east side. When my wife and I moved into our property, we had the pleasure to meet the son of the original owner, Mr. Mallory, and it was beautiful in terms of showing him around what the property looked like on the inside versus, how he grew up with it, and hearing from him just the stories in terms of how his father and his older brother constructed the property back in the early 50s. I believe, and I'm sorry, I don't recall the gentleman's name, but I believe he was also a resident still there in the east side, and he might have passed away in the last couple of years. All that to say is that there's a great sense of community. The neighbors all know one another, and everyone's friendly, obviously. People, quickly get acquainted, and you start to understand some of the concerns that have existed there, not only today, but also, previously. It seems like this study was done in a very abstract form. And even though there was opportunity for community members to provide input, there was just a lack of transparency. I myself was not even aware that this was happening. And my oldest son actually watches these live streams like pretty regularly. So I feel that it would be best in only conveying, some of the messages from neighbors that I've spoken to about this. There's just a general concern, a real concern about what this plan represents. Obviously there's a PDF document that's, I don't know how many hundreds of pages that you can read through, lots of stats and figures. But I think there's just a general misunderstanding that can maybe be clarified if members of the board or maybe whoever conducted this study were to come into the community at the community center and allow folks to come in and, ask questions in person. I think that would be, something very fair to expect from the board. And certainly, I don't know the specifics, but if this could be set aside for a time until those questions could be answered and those concerns be addressed, I think it would just be better all around for everybody. So with that, I'll pass to the next person. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Morgado.
Good evening. My name is Bernadine Sims.
And my name is Carolyn Gothard. We are Bernard Sims's granddaughters.
Our grandmother, Mary Jane Hittigan, arrived here in Grange in 1852. She was the first black individual to join St. Francis Xavier Church. Since then, she raised her family here, and this is all we know as children. Grange has been everything we know. We never came from anywhere else. We never went anywhere else, and this is all we know. And my concern is that I would like to see some improvements in what we already have. If you're going to tear down something, I would like to see maybe a educational center built or something that has more value to the community than just bringing in all different kinds of people that don't have the love and the concern for the children in the community and the seniors in the community. Something that would enhance what we already have would be money better spent, in my opinion.
We're up here because our concerns are what Dr. Boyd said and Janine Ferguson. Because we've been lifelong residents, we are just very concerned on these multi-unit buildings. And we'd like to preserve what we have, and we'd like to see the plans and see what's really going on.
So it's just I think what we are asking for also is a better communication to the residents that reside in the place, because a lot of people that make decisions for us don't live there.
Right.
They don't understand the way we understand on how our community operates.
And just as this gentleman who was before us said that Mr. Mallory told him all the stories, we have great stories too, because we've been here forever. And we know everything about everything that goes on here or that was here. Because most of the people here, our grandparents, great-grandparents, we have longevity in this community. We just like to say we're on board with seeing what you guys plan to do, because we are the people that it's affecting.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies.
Good evening. I'm Al Foreman from 7th Avenue in LaGrange. I had sent most of you an email over the previous days to try to highlight in advance a few of the things I wanted to talk about. Thank you for responding. I'm not going to read those details, but I will say that my humble recommendation to you is, as you listen to feedback today, please prioritize the speakers that have preceded me. I come from a slightly different perspective, but I'm really moved by your comments. So I really appreciate that. So with that said, tonight I want to make one point, raise two concerns, and make three suggestions on some specific pages in the comprehensive plan. My point, I'm a longtime homeowner in the historic district of LaGrange, 37 years. My neighbors and I live on 7th Avenue between Harris and Cossett. We're the closest homes in the R5 district to the downtown area. And I'm hoping that you can appreciate our input as key stakeholders in solutions to our concerns. The first concern we have is achieving an equitable balance between the historic district and equitable between the downtown development and the historic district. As currently drafted, the comprehensive plan understandably emphasizes downtown development. However, proposed high-rise developments should not bleed into or affect the charm of the historic district. The second concern is the recommendation to apply soft density to the R5 zoning category. The R5 zone already allows the highest single-family density, and if nearby high-rise development is encouraged, then why further increase density in the adjacent R5 zone? The email I sent on the 25th of October suggested 9 page-by-page edits. Most of them are simple drafting revisions, but I'd like to amplify suggestions on 3 specific pages. First, page 33. The height standard sparked significant discussion, but I'm not sure there was sufficient focus on the potential site locations. I believe the following approach would ensure maximum distance between any high-rise developments and single-family homes. First suggestion is to delete the R8 zoned properties from this proposal. Let the existing 3 stories by right regulations remain intact for that zoning designation. Next, I would encourage you to state that height revisions will not apply to any sites within the historic district boundaries as shown on page 43. Turning to page 34, the site map exhibit 3, upon further reflection, I now think that the very least this page deserves is a disclaimer footnote. This particular page may be the easiest to take out of context and generate great emotion. I suggest a footnote such as subject to subsequent village board approval of local zoning ordinances. Finally, on page 36, soft density. Please strike the language allowing proliferation of two dwellings per lot within the R5 zoning district. Over the last 40-plus years, the R5 zone area has flourished with the restoration of single-family homes. I consider the R5 single-family homes to be quintessential front porch communities. However, if soft density is desired strategy, then I question why it's not recommended throughout the entire village of LaGrange. So thank you very much for your time, your attention, and your consideration of my comments.
Thank you, Mr. Foreman.
Good evening.
Good evening, trustee.
My name is Ken Eastman, and I only have a couple of comments. The first of which is to ask or request that the board take some more time to review what is being proposed in the comprehensive plan. I'll ask you, President Kukler, how many villages exist in the Grange?
Exist what?
In the Grange. How many villages exist in the Grange?
I would say 1.
1.
Please keep your questions real easy, though.
The reason I asked the question is that according to the comprehensive plan, there are things being proposed in different areas for different reasons. But we only have 1 village. And if there are things that are proposed in the plan for the village, why is it not being proposed for the entire village rather than just 1 zoning district or 1 zoning area? I understand the answer to that question, but the reason that I asked the question is because I asked you the question previously, how many villages we have. If we only have 1 village and you're making, or the village board is making recommendations for the entire village should be considered as the recipients of the decisions that the village board makes. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Eastburn.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Regina McClinton, 208 East Avenue. I will keep it short because so many people before me did an elegant way of putting everything. I just wanted to say that since it is one village, my concern, not only with what's being proposed for the east side, but in general for the village, is the density. Over the years, I've always looked at the sign, which they no longer post, at the beginning of what was Washington, going over the bridge. It used to post our population. My concern is people who buy in LaGrange, they have a certain idea of what LaGrange is, and part of that is the density. If we start adding all this, and we have added quite a bit, I looked at the 2000 U.S. Census, and our population density, use the glasses, was 15,148. That's 2000. 2010, close by, 15,137. Okay, now we go to 2020. We have 16,321, over 1,150 growth. If we're looking to add more, we know that things have to be corrected. Infrastructure, make sure we have adequate schools and everything else that goes with it. Like we talked about before, as far as flooding, we have to make sure everything is adequate. But not only that, is that the higher the density, I don't think is necessarily the better for the community, because it changes the structure of the community. So I'm just saying, I don't like to see the density increase, especially, I wouldn't want to see a fourplex right next to my house. I'm sure most of you won't, or would not. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. McClinton.
Hi, I'm Nancy Bramson, and I'm speaking in support of the East Side residents, my friends, and I, as a concerned citizen residing in the LaGrange area, who frequently patronizes LaGrange businesses and participates in events and programs here, and also have been very involved with East Side activities going on over there. I would like to request that the village hold off on voting on the comprehensive plan until the East Side community and sub-area is further represented within the plan. The comprehensive plan features a 2-page acknowledgement of the East Side with reference to enhancing biking and walking infrastructure. But this community needs more than this. The plan does not include comparable strategies or chapters to those identified for all other sub-areas, such as the north side, the west side, et cetera, inclusive of community character and input, planning considerations, transportation and access, environmental sustainability, economic development. Additionally, the plan references the potential rezoning of R6 to include 3 and 4 plexes, which would have a significant impact on the fabric of the East Side residential neighborhood. I'm asking the village board to re-examine the comprehensive plan to ensure it is an equitable plan for the entire community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Branson.
Hello, my name is Ramon Lacey. I'm a lifelong resident of LaGrange, Illinois. Take some time and hold off on the comprehensive plan, especially for the section of the east side. Like my elder said, a lot of the things that they said were already said. We've been here our entire lives. We haven't come from anywhere else, we haven't gone anywhere else. And a lot of the comprehensive plans actually happen around us. So we don't actually get to benefit ever from it. So it's economic advancement, but for whom? We don't ever get any equity in those plans. We never get any benefits from those plans. We've been diverse, but we haven't been able to get any upward mobility because of the lack of equity. So with this plan being in place, I think we do need to be taken part of and taken serious before we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lacey.
Hello, Catherine Thiessen. My husband and I own 16 Sawyer on the east side. When we bought it 11 years ago, the community was wonderful. It was amazing to meet so many people that had lived there their whole lives, and their parents lived there and their grandparents lived there, and it was so tight-knit, and they really welcomed us in. Our property is zoned as a 2-unit. We bought it, we thought it was a 3-unit. And having that 3rd unit helps us keep rents low in the whole building. And I know that we're not the only one in that area that's like that. And when we went door to door, when the comprehensive plan was sort of on the table and they were having community events, there were other people that said, yeah, that's happened to us too, that we weren't zoned correctly, we had to get rid of our unit. So I know that it's happening and it has happened in that area. I can understand the concern for everybody not wanting a development to come in and change the character of the area. I completely understand that because I wouldn't want that either. But there are grandfathered people in that I think would benefit from some of this. I don't know if there's a way to write that in the plan that maybe we don't want huge developments owning a whole block, or I'm not sure what, I can see everyone's concerns here. So it's just our side of it, but I could see the other side of it too, so.
Well, I do appreciate you speaking, Ms. Thiessen, because you're really one of the issues kind of that's here that really speaks of it. And just so everybody knows, what she's indicating is it currently R6, which is where her house is, and you live in one of the units, correct?
We did up until a couple of years ago, yeah.
Okay, so you don't live in the unit, so you're an investor. Where you own the property, is zoned, because it's R6, it can only be zoned as a 2-flat, but it's being used as a 3-flat. And so if we don't make a change to the zoning, and that the comprehensive plan is really the first step on that, if we don't make a change to allow 3-flats, we then need to say, well, we're aware of this 3-flat, we know it's illegal, it can't continue. And the investor, which is going to be some neighbors on the east side and that live in those buildings, they're going to lose that income stream. And the person who lives in that unit is going to have to move out. So that's one of the things, at least for me personally. I don't agree with the 4 flats. I think that's too big. But I could be persuaded for a 3-flat for that purpose. But again, if the community by and large is saying, no, we don't want that 3-flat, we want those buildings to be only 2-flats. We understand that the owners are going to lose that rent that they have, and we understand other people are going to be evicted. That's the message. I mean, I think up here we want to do what the community wants, but that's my personal struggle is we're hearing about affordable housing. These buildings are being used currently as 3-flats. And does the community want that to change? What is it? And again, does the community want that maybe to be grandfathered? Is it possible to be grandfathered? Those are legal questions I don't know the answer to. But is that what the community wants? Or is the community saying, no, we want those people evicted and those units back to 2 units? Or we're happy with 3 units, but we don't want 4 units. And so that I'm glad you spoke up, because that is the other side. That is really the reason R6 was picked, I think, because when they were looking over those properties, there were several buildings that were non-conforming 3 flats.
Yeah, I know that we're not the only one, and I can't say what other people are using it for. And I mean, I feel like we're not investors. I know that we are, but I feel like we're not because we lived there for so long, and it was our first home, and we try really hard to keep rents low for everybody. And I know that not everybody's going to do that, but it makes it so much easier because we have that 3rd unit, and we bought it that way, and it's legal. It has 2 exits, not legal zoning wise, but again, I can see it's a struggle because I wouldn't want the character to change the neighborhood either. Like, I was thinking about it after the last meeting, leaving here, like, how would I feel about 3 lots being built up next to me with 4 units each? I get that. So I don't know if there is a way to have it written differently that can't, like, a developer can't come in and do that. I don't know if that's possible, but.
Well, again, I appreciate you speaking tonight. I'll violate all good government rules and say if anybody wants to speak again after hearing that, since I interjected my comments, you feel free to come up and say, but thank you.
Okay, thank you so much.
All right. I certainly appreciate, I remember you coming by my home, you and your husband. I certainly would agree that we have no objections to grandfathering. But I think our objection in the community, what we're saying is, because there are various ideas, we need another conversation. And I don't think tonight is going to be the night to clearly hear all the concerns, because there are some individuals who just found out about this meeting today and are not able to attend, particularly some of those from Second Baptist Church in LaGrange. So I think that's what we're asking for, to table your decision that you have before you this evening, and then hear what our concerns are. Because the board, you can vote on this at any time, but we would just be appreciative if you would take the time to now hear our concerns. I know you had other things that you went through before in terms of focus groups and all of that, but if you could give us that opportunity to hear our concerns on that. And yes, grandfathering is a good idea. And I also think that grandfathering carriage houses, someone to live in it, is an excellent idea as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Boyd. All right. Again, any other comments on things on tonight's agenda?
My name's John Pluto. I live at 718 East Avenue. I've been following this comprehensive plan for the last 3 meetings, and I look at it in an overview of we're trying to fix something that really isn't broke. I think that perhaps we should just go with the old plan. The vetting for 5-story buildings was fine if you go through the proper procedures and hearings and public meetings where they can comment on it. But now we're trying to increase the density in other areas of the village. Our infrastructure in this village can't handle it. And we know when that infrastructure is going to get fixed, and it isn't going to happen until 2029, till that deep tunnel reservoir gets put in. And we hope that that works. But in the meantime, we're going to expand this village that can't handle what it already has. And I think we have to work on making our infrastructure better than trying to make our density bigger. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pluto.
I had one more thing.
Sure.
I won't take much of your time. It's just that I concur with a lot of what I heard this evening from Dr. Boyd, from other members from the East Side, and from others who spoke about the potential for grandfathering in those 2-unit ones, which are actually 3 units. I think what we need to keep in mind overall is affordability. I think that's one of the key things that is a problem here now. It may not be for everybody who can afford to buy the more expensive homes, and they become more expensive. You know, they may have started out as very modest homes, but their prices are going up and up. That leaves a whole segment of the population who has lived here for a long time, or who grew up here, went to LT and other schools, and they can't buy back into it. And I think that's a problem. I don't think we want to become another Hinsdale. That happened in Western Springs. I don't think any of us want to see that here. Thank you.
Thank you, Peg Moster. All right. Seeing no further comments, may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda and a second?
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Thank you, Trustee Gill. Thank you, Trustee Thompson. With that, any discussion regarding matters on the consent agenda?
Thank you, Mr. Kugler. I would just say that I would, as previously stated, recuse myself from voting on any of the agenda items related to our village prosecutor.
Thank you. Any other comments? Trustee Peterson.
Yes.
Thank you.
Regarding item D, the intergovernmental agreement between Illinois Department of Healthcare and Family Services and the Village of LaGrange, and I'm directing this to our Chief of the Fire Department, Chief Rada. Can you tell us GEMT?
Yes, ma'am. That stands for the Ground Emergency Transport. It is in there, but the Ground Emergency Medical Transport Program. So that's just the acronym is GMT.
So can you tell us a little bit about this department, this agreement?
We've had this for, I believe, 2 years now. So this will be the renewal of that program. It's statewide. They have allowed us to bill what Medicare would not, or in addition to what Medicare and Medicaid charge. So it was previously entered into last year, I believe, and this is just a renewal of that. You're welcome.
So, Chief, am I correct? It allows us to collect more on our ambulance runs.
Correct, yes.
Thank you. Any other trustee comments, concerns? Trustee Thompson.
Yeah, just one comment I would like to see. I know for the fleet purchase that we're going to approve tonight for the police cars, I would like to, when we go into our budget process this year, that we change our budget process for fleet vehicles so that we can get them in the proper order time. I know that means we're actually going to have to budget out fleet purchases for 2 years out, but we're missing the fleet cutoff for fleet vehicles because Ford, General Motors, all cut them off basically off this time of year now because of the demand on the factory. So if we could just make a note at budget time to let's budget 2 years worth of vehicles so that we can plan our budget so we can order instead of having to go through basically trying to find the best deal we can. We did a great job, not complaining, but we just need to be better prepared for the future.
Thank you, Trustee Thompson. Seeing no other trustee comments, I would ask for a roll call vote.
Trustee Peterson.
Aye.
Trustee O'Brien.
Aye.
Trustee McGee.
Aye.
Trustee Augustine.
Aye.
Trustee Thompson.
Aye.
Trustee Gale.
Aye.
And that passes unanimously. Moving on to current business. So we left off last meeting on page 108, but I don't know how best to address all the comments that we heard tonight with kind of the idea of a large segment of the community feeling that they didn't have an adequate time to participate in the process. So I'm not sure if there's a staff member or if Mr. Blue wants to address that. I think, and I'll only speak for myself, but my guess is that I and the majority of the board would be in favor of kicking a formal adoption so that we can hear and sit down some way, figure out a way to have this meeting with the community. We're going to need legal assistance because it's going to have to be a public meeting because we can't get together with more than 2 board members to speak. So 3 of us couldn't go and speak about a topic with you or with anybody in the community. So it becomes a problem of how we best do this. But I understand the concerns that were raised. I want to make sure everybody feels that they're heard. I think that's one of the best things about small government is residents at least get to be heard. You may not get your way, but you should be at least heard. So I'm not sure if anybody wants to jump in on best recommendations. Our attorney's speaking first, and maybe our consultant's getting ready to stand up too.
Yeah.
Why don't you stand up, Mr. Blue, and we'll have Ben, you speak. And
Yeah, so there's a couple different ways you can do this, and I'll leave it from a policy perspective to others, but just from a legal perspective, I just want to point out a couple of things just to keep in mind as you think about how you would like to proceed. One of which is that once the recommendation is forward from the Plan Commission on the comprehensive plan, this board has 90 days in which to accept it, reject it, or it can accept it in part. So you could accept the comprehensive plan and leave out a section and come back at another point and do an amendment. And if not, you have to send it, if you can't get it done in 90 days, you will have to go back to the Plan Commission and have them hold another public hearing on the comprehensive plan. Now, that may not be a huge deal. I'm not real crazy about that. But that's the requirement.
What's our 90-day time period?
That puts us at December. Sorry.
We held the public hearing with the Plan Commission on September 10th.
And that begins the 90-day?
Right. So
Yes.
then December 10th, roughly, would be the 90 days.
Okay. So really, we only have a scheduled board meeting of November 18th between now and expiration date of whether it's December 10th or December 12th. Yes.
We could still hold the meeting the week of Thanksgiving. School's still in session. Nobody's leaving town that week. I don't know why we couldn't have that as a special meeting where we use that day as a special public hearing to meet and talk about, even if we have it at the community center on the east side, but let's take that meeting date, have the meeting on the 18th, avoid the holiday, but November 25th work day for most people, and it's a school day for the school districts around here, so let's go ahead and meet.
All right, we can discuss that. That's one alternative. What was the option of passing part of it? If we pass part, can we readdress the other part we haven't passed, or?
Yes, so you can, for the comprehensive plan, you could accept any part of it. You can make edits. You could take out a section. You can adopt whatever you think is appropriate at this time, and nothing precludes us from amending it down the road. So if you have to, again, go back through the Plan Commission public hearing process, but if there is a section that you think is needs more attention and should go back through that process, you could do that on a timeline that you see fit, and then have it come back here or after the public hearing of the Plan Commission for discussion and adoption to incorporate into your comprehensive plan.
Okay, so I'm hearing that, the way I hear it, there's three options. One option is that we pass it today or on the 18th. One option is that we pass it on the 25th on a specially called meeting. And one option, which I don't like, is that we don't pass it and we start, even if it's a small part, going through the Plan Commission again and having the board look at it. However, why don't we start down at Trustee Thompson? If you have another option to add, feel free, but I think those are the three options, kind of where you feel, and we'll just go down the line.
So I guess my comment was that I hate to bump it back to the Planning Commission because we did not get a lot of participation in the public hearing, and I'm not sure the Planning Commission feels as empowered as we do to take bigger swings at this. They're just going to vote it or pass or not pass. So I think this needs to stay at our level to solve. I'm going to vote no against approving this plan tonight anyway, because I haven't seen a written revision that includes all the changes we made before. So I don't have a document in front of me that I could approve anyway. So my vote's going to be no, not to approve it tonight. So I think we need to push it to the next meeting or something, because we're not in any way ready to approve this plan.
Okay, and I just want to follow up on that with legal counsel. We weren't ever going to vote to approve it today, right? Or what were we doing? I guess I wasn't sure because we haven't seen the plan and how it was going to be done.
So I think the intent, I mean, you have the authority to, I think the intent was to continue discussion and then at the next meeting come back with the edits for a vote. But that is your prerogative on the timing.
So I guess to address Trustee Thompson's concern, that you were going to get the edited version to vote on before you were going to be asked to vote, with the idea that we've met a consensus on the parts before you're asked to vote.
Yeah, and I guess I want to thank the residents of the east side for coming out tonight. One, I talked earlier today, and I knew this was an upsetting issue for your side, so I appreciate y'all coming out and support. And I think it is important that we hear the residents' concerns from all over. We've heard the 5 story, but this is a kind of a new development for this larger group of residents to come out. So I really think we do need to figure out how we work this in and address the plan so we don't shut down a non-conforming unit in light of the fact that that's not what really the area works. So we need to really work through that as we go. So I think we need some time to work on it.
And Trustee McGee, your thoughts on?
I agree with Trustee Thompson. I think we need to take time to hear the concerns of the residents before we make any decision as to whether or not to approve or reject the plan.
Okay. And Mr. Blue, we do want to get your recommendations. I don't know if you want to give thoughts now or wait till all the trustees speak, whatever makes the most sense.
I was only going to offer that clearly there's desire and interest to have.
Excuse me, 1 second. Trustee Peterson.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but Glenn, if you could repeat some of what your thoughts were, because I couldn't hear you. Thank you.
So I was just saying that, first off, I appreciate the residents of the east side coming out tonight in full support to show their concerns, and also the fact that we've had this new issue pop up where we have a non-conforming unit and the residents support keeping that versus just saying, no, shut it down. So there's something we need to work through in that wording and how we do that grandfather or whatever. But, I'm glad President Kukla cleared that up. We're not voting on the plan tonight because we haven't seen the final document, but I think we do need to have another meeting. Kicking this back to the Planning Commission, I don't think solves anything, because I just think they're going to see a revised plan. They're going to discuss it. There's not going to be this kind of participation from the audience. There's more lively debate from our group than there is the Planning Commission, rightfully so. We are the ones that are elected to make the decision. So I would like to keep it at this level, and we decide it. So even if it requires an extra meeting, have a meeting down in the Community Development Center, and let's meet down there with the residents and have a public, and stage it as a public meeting. We can have an open discussion. I think those are what we need to have more of anyway in this village.
Okay. Mr. Blue.
I was only going to add, you'll as a board will decide about extra conversations and extra meetings, and that'll be up to you. I was only going to suggest that Kelly Conley and I, from Sam Schwartz and I, are here tonight. What you may want to do is continue to work our way through the rest of the document tonight and kind of see if there's any more thoughts or changes there, and then make a decision about how you want to proceed with this, with the question about the neighborhood.
I appreciate that. So what I'm hearing from that is, we'll quickly get the trustees' comments on this, move on so that we can get through to all the other sections, with the idea that we're going to be kicking back at least the housing on the east side and perhaps other areas.
I have one more question.
Sure.
Am I clear in understanding that if we meet with the residents, we cannot have more than 3 trustees at the meeting?
It raises a great point, Trustee McGee. We're even if we have another meeting, and it sounds like we are with the residents, we're still going to have it where it's like this type of meeting. So my idea, and again, just speaking off the top of my head, would be that staff would prepare a memo regarding, from a legal perspective, a planning perspective, yes, you could grandfather in existing buildings, or yes, you could make it 3 flats but not 4 flats, or you could make it X number of new 3 flats, whatever our options are, and staff could provide that. And we maybe even can make that on the webpage or something. But it's basically, Attorney Schuster, correct me if I'm wrong, we're still going to come back to a meeting, whether it's here or on the east side, and the residents are going to have an opportunity to speak and say what they want. And then the board is going to, ask and hash out and persuade fellow trustees to vote one way or the other, and then have it come to a head. It's not going to be a workshop where a couple trustees sit at a table and talk and things like that. It will be an opportunity to make sure that everybody had the opportunity to be heard, and then we need to make a decision as to which thing we want, again, in the comprehensive plan.
Okay, thank you.
Is that, Attorney Schuster, kind of how, if there's another way to do it, feel free to tell me. I'm just not aware of it.
Yeah, under the Open Meetings Act, when you have a majority of a quorum, it needs to be at a noticed public meeting. So 3 trustees, if they're going to meet and get together, 3 or more, it has to be 48 hours notice, special meeting, minutes, and all the requirements under the law, just like this meeting. If an individual trustee or 2 trustees want to talk to a resident or groups of residents, that's certainly allowed, but then it's not with the board. And so, the benefit of, a meeting, the 25th or whatever that Monday would be, is it would be publicly noticed, and it would go through this process and meet the requirements of the Open Meetings Act.
Okay. Trustee Augustine.
Thank you, President Kukler. I agree with what's been said by the trustees to my left. And I strongly believe that we can uncancel the November 25th meeting, have 2 meetings on the subjects that are of most concern to this audience, as well as anything else that might come up, and still potentially come to a vote in December to lock this in within the 90 days.
No, the December won't be, it has to be voted on by the 25th. We'd have to have another special meeting before the December meeting.
But December 9th is the next board meeting. So December 10th is the date.
Oh, I didn't count the dates, to be honest.
I did. It's the 9th. December 9th is 90 days, unless I did the math wrong.
So that would be just to the wire, but
I'm gonna ask a legal opinion for that, if that's what this board wants to do. Well, again, but why don't you say, while Ben looks up whether 90 days and what that means, and if anybody really thinks that should be the vote as opposed to just doing it at 2 more meetings.
and I think potentially we can, and I would hope that we can, because I really do see it as 2 to 3 large issues, and I think with clarification and conversation and a back and forth, and that we'll be able to work out what it is that the majority of the most concerned residents have, and how we as a board can address that. I don't think any of these issues that we're discussing are so pressing that they couldn't be changed or removed tonight. I wouldn't fight to the death for 5-story by right or 4-story by right, and there are certainly some areas that I would like to lose that are closer into the historic district and not necessarily along the BNSF. So there might be some easier changes there. I agree with all the concerns about density. And I also agree that a lot of this would be addressed and handled and understood better if we do develop that affordable housing needs assessment task force and group. So I think we really do need to better understand the needs of the community. I think this has pointed that out. That's one of the problems right now, the cars are racing around. I think that there's plenty to discuss. I think a lot of us probably up here know where we would like to go with this, and we've learned a lot from what we've heard, and I think that's going to change some things. So I'm hopeful that this is not complicated and that we can come to some agreement over the next couple of meetings, and I would encourage that we add back that canceled meeting because we do have important things to talk about.
Thank you, Trustee Augustine. Trustee Gale.
Well, before I forget, not to throw a damper on this, but D102 is out that full week, so that Monday. I don't know how that affects anybody else's thinking, but certainly it's, there's the potential for people to be out of town. I won't be, but, just, that was one of the thoughts.
And we do have to be sensitive to staff's
right. vacation
plans, but go on.
Regardless, I just want to put that out there off the top. But then I agree. I mean, we need to, I'm sort of nonplussed sitting here, like, I like Trustee Thompson's comment about, like, we're the ones that have to make the decision. There's a part of me that wants, I kind of want to kick it back to the Plan Commission and be like, look, go through this again. But, I mean, like, I don't know. Yeah, they'll probably just vote it through and we'll be back here. So it seems like scheduling-wise, I mean, I kind of like the framework we've kind of come up with. I mean, where we're going to have, where are we at? We're at the 28th now. We'll have our meeting on the 18th. Another meeting on the 25th, or even, I mean, there's an option where, you gavel in like a meeting of the whole, we have a discussion, then we have a meeting to actually, finalize whatever we want to do. That's another option too. Try to do 2 meetings in one day. It'd be a heck of a lot of work, but because it sounds like, right, we're talking
All right,
the
Trustee
18th.
Gales, is that a fourth plan or what?
Well, no,
I mean,
I'm sort of thinking out
what are we
loud.
going to accomplish in 2 meetings that we can't accomplish in 1?
Well, I mean, what's the framework we're talking about? Are we talking about 18th and then the 25th? Is that?
What I would suggest very strongly, and I want to hear from all the trustees, is that we really concentrate on having the 18th as the meeting for the residents who feel like they haven't been heard. That they come out and say whatever they want to be said. That we don't need to extend it for 2 meetings for the purpose of getting feedback from the community. Saying and sending mixed signals of don't come the 18th, come on the 25th. I'm not sure. I think we should plan on spending hours on the 18th on this issue that's left, with the idea of on the 25th then passing what we got. So people that are concerned, and again, we'll talk about it. We've talked about it. Here are the issues. We were trying to do what we think is best for all these areas. If people have different feelings on that, tell us, and then we'll make a decision. But come to the 18th meeting with your ideas. That's going to be the time for the public to talk about it. We will have you on the 25th. You'll be able to say what you want. But if we did our work on the 18th, by the 18th, we're going to have really hammered hard where we want to be.
Got it. So 18th discussion, 25th pass it, the 9th. The 9th is just a regular meeting, so
that'd be my
that's
hope.
your idea. I mean, it seems like we can do, yeah, I mean, that seems to work to me. That seems like what we should be doing. And maybe.
All right, let me pass to Trustee Peterson. If you want to come back, I'll be happy to. Trustee Peterson.
I agree. Having the 18th and allowing the residents to speak, I completely agree, concur. My question is whether or not this would result in a revised document by the 25th that we then pass. I don't know.
I guess that's
a hard one for me.
That's a question that we have for staff or consultants.
Yeah.
If we were to meet on the 18th, Monday, and then have a consensus, would we be able to have a document that
So we would have less than 3 business days to turn the document around. So I guess it depends on the extent of the revisions to the document. Some could be easy to implement, some could be more challenging. I wish I could give you a more straightforward answer than that, but we could certainly endeavor to have the document ready within those 3 business days for consideration on the 25th so that we can stay easily within that 90-day window as required by law.
That's a hard one. What do you think? I'm seeing.
I promise we'll go back. I promise we'll go back to
Going
her.
that way.
Okay. If you're done, we'll move on to Trustee O'Brien, and then we'll come back.
I would support the 18th and hopefully push for the 25th, as
Okay.
Charity had said.
Okay. With that, Trustee Thompson.
President Cooker, I think, so if we finish, as you had suggested, we finish going through the document tonight, we're only down to a couple of areas that we really need citizen input. We could have the document really ready for the next meeting, and then we just have those few sections left that you have to turn in 3 business days. Does that make it easier?
That would be my hope, that we could arrange it that way.
Right. Okay, cool.
Thank you, Trustee Thompson. Trustee Augustine.
Thank you, President Kugler. I also think that it's quite likely that we won't be able to really understand what we want and what we need in one meeting or 2. There will be continued conversation. So what I think will probably happen, it would be easier for staff, and I just remind everybody, we've heard it all before, this is a plan, this is aspirational, these are not codes we're changing, these are not zoning changes that we're making. It would potentially make things better to remove the east side from the discussion when it comes to the 3plexes and 4plexes. And then we can talk about that at another time when we've fully addressed it and fully taken the deep dive and we're all very comfortable. There's no need to rush this. This is a great conversation to have. I think it's kind of overdue. So my suggestion, I think, would speed that up rather than trying to rewrite something complicated and meticulous. And so I think we can get there, but I have a feeling that that's the way we do it.
I'm not sure that that's possible. I think we have to ask if we remove the east side from the comprehensive plan, does it have any impact on the issue that we have with the non-conforming 2 flats and others? I mean, we're just by a vote saying we're taking out of the east side out of a comprehensive plan. Again, if that's what the majority of the board wants, it's not what I would be advocating for. But is there any problems legally? Where do we go if we were to do that?
So the comprehensive plan is a policy document. I think what could be challenging in just removing the east side, which is one part of the R6 district, not all of the R6 district, is that the current plan language talks about the R6 district. And it talks about modest increases in density in the R6 district, just like it does in the R5. And then there's, other increases in the R7, R8, C1, C2. So they were all sort of part of a larger set of recommendations aimed at increasing housing options and addressing some of the housing affordability concerns we heard through the public engagement process. We certainly can take some time to look at how we would exclude the East Side neighborhood from those recommendations, but we would have to sort of retool some of the ways that those recommendations exist if you wanted them to remain for the other R6 zoned areas.
Well, I think, we can see what happens at that next meeting, but, there's a lot of places in this comprehensive plan where we say with exception. So I think what we can do is say with exception to the R6 zone on the east side because further discussion is needed. And again, we're not changing law or code. So I think that I'd like to think that that's a possibility. I just don't want to rush this.
It certainly is. I think the issue does remain regarding the illegal 3-flat that exists currently, that a number of residents in the area signed a petition that they were in favor of when that was going through a zoning relief process, and then some of the other nonconformities. So that's a piece that would still sort of be outstanding to address.
Agree, but we're not solving it by voting the comprehensive plan one way or the other, right? That still has to go through Plan Commission, right, and through the board separately, because this is just an idea of what we want our town to look like in the future.
Right. This is the policy guidance that sets the stage for the future zoning code rewrites. So if the board wishes to set a policy that we want to amend the zoning code to allow for legal 3-flats in the East Side neighborhood, then the comprehensive plan would be a place that policy could exist, so that when we begin the zoning code rewrite, we know that that's on the list of issues to attack.
Correct, but if we hadn't been at approximately the 20-year mark, we could have that conversation without having done the comprehensive plan this year. In other words, that discussion can be on the table at any given time. So I just don't want to force things to fit into this comprehensive plan at this point in time. I don't think they have to connect.
Thank you. Anything else before we move on the comprehensive plan? Trustee Gale, we may not we're going to close at 10, but
I know.
Say what you have to say.
My comment is just simple. Like I'm struggling. Like how do we, or is it just one giant disclaimer? Like how do we separate out the East End from the document? You know, it's not like there's one chapter about the East End and we can just say, all right, we're just going to set aside chapter 5, right? And we're going to talk about 1 through 4 and 6 through 9. I'm just trying to get my head around how we go about doing this. And to me, the easier thing is just doing it all together. It doesn't seem like that's not possible.
I understand your concerns. Right. To me, if you were going to do it, you'd do it the whole R6. But why don't we have that, discussion when it's ripe, and we see what we have in front of us, and whether after hearing from the residents at another meeting, we've heard enough to put together what we think, at least 4 of us, think is a consensus and to move forward. If we can't, then we can start talking alternatives.
Right. And I would just want to say one final thing, though. When you look at these areas that would be in R6 and would be eligible for the triplex and the quads, there's parts of town where these already exist. There's many apartment buildings that are dual, triple, and more along small stretches throughout LaGrange. But the east side is the only area where an entire community is addressed in one fell swoop. And I think that's the concern. It certainly is for me when it came up. So I think it can be separated out fairly easily because we all have I think we can think about it logically.
We left off at page 108. That's the transportation and access chapter. It goes from 102 to 119. Again, it was 7 and 108. I think we discussed that. The next section was bicycle planning, 109 to 113. Any comments on that section? Thank you, Trustee Peterson.
Thank you, President Kukler. Some of the residents has brought to my attention that there is possibility for using Stone Avenue, particularly, I'm going to say from about 53rd Street up to 55th Street. It has been brought to my attention. Several residents have said twice a day, parents are picking up students. That street becomes very narrow. And bicycle traffic could put people in danger. And I know that there was an aspirational, or there was an intent to link bicycle paths or pathways in LaGrange to the bicycle path that's in Countryside along Brainerd. So I am aware of why Stone Avenue was picked. However, the school is there, people park twice a day, and it's been brought to my, so questioning, maybe Wayola, a better alternative, just some thoughts there.
Okay, the staff want to jump in on that, on what the thought on Stone is, why Stone versus Wayola, if it matters?
We have Kelly Connolly here from Sam Schwartz who can speak to this
Awesome.
more. But in general, the routes that are shown on page 110 of the plan for on-street bike facilities are intended to be near major roads that connect through our neighborhoods.
I guess let me clarify a couple things. The map on 110, the intent was with that was to, I don't think these are hard and fast streets that you would necessarily be adopting as a bike lane. The intent was to show we're trying to select low stress streets that we would advertise to bikers that this is an option because it's low stress. You do not necessarily need to install anything on the roadway to make that a bike route. You can, that is an option. Something like the picture in on page 111, is an option to do on some segments of street. We were not necessarily saying that Stone Avenue is a good candidate for that. You need no parking, you need the right widths of street, you need the right no parking restrictions and everything like that. So I think this was more of a exemplary picture and not necessarily all of the routes marked on the map would need to look like this.
Any questions after hearing from Kelly?
I would just say that I would probably just not that we were looking at a street, because my concern with Stone is still, I do not think IDOT's going to approve a crossing a half block from the light at Brainerd. And I think that's going to lead to somebody.
You mean at 47th Street?
47th Street. Yeah,
They're not.
Push it to Wayola, maybe they might approve it.
They're not. We tried after a death, and they didn't. We can try, but to think that that's going to get approved is a lot of work.
That close to a red light, they would never approve, because you're causing a traffic stop right at another traffic stop. So I would say we don't name the streets. Let's just say we're looking to set that bike path somewhere to be the connector at this point. Do we do more research and not name Stone?
All right, so I think Trustee Thompson is saying remove Stone Avenue and Cossett Avenue can serve as superstructure of the Greenway plan. And just take out that sentence and everything else is fine?
Yeah, because to me, Cossett Avenue is not a low traffic street either. If you're trying to keep people on a minor street, Cossett Avenue is a school zone, a busy street, high school students speeding down it. We don't need to attract more bike traffic onto that road.
All right. So, any other trustee comments on this?
Yeah, I had an easier one on. There is already, and it's not on the picture here in 110. There's already, in my experience, a bike lane on 48th heading west. It's Linklater Court at 7:30 in the morning. If you are walking the opposite direction, if you're walking away from the high school, you are going to get run over by about 150 kids pedaling along Linklater. So this is the north of the golf course over to Edgewood. They make a quick left, then a right through the park, and head right to South Campus. That can be part of a future plan for this. That just caught my eye. And then I was going to say on the edit we were talking about, we could just say, streets to be considered can serve as a superstructure, or we could just take out that sentence.
Any other? Trustee Eisen.
Thank you, President Kukler. Two main concerns for me. I have heard from many a resident on this bike proposal, and initially, as Trustee Thompson referred to, when they see that picture and they think of their street having that bike lane, they think of new parking problems, and to try to funnel adults and probably largely children over to those streets, is going to create a fear on that street. And I'm not sure I would really be interested in having it on my street. And I know some of the residents where they think it might be on their street have spoken up. So I think the other side of it is I'm not sure that, my 12-year-old son would ride out of his way to go to one of these streets. I think it's important to make safe some of these the main sidewalks and streets where we can. But I'm not sure that we need something like that on our smaller side streets. Not sure how much support that would get or who would want it. I like the idea.
So what are you suggesting in paragraph A on page 110?
Well, I'm not sure about the new language. I'm just not sure that we need the connections to come from one of our smaller side streets. I don't know that we need a stone bike lane or a Wyola. I don't know that we need to physically construct something like that and then affect the side streets in that way in those residential streets. And then I've heard along those lines from quite a few residents who are pretty adamant about it.
Okay. Anybody else want to comment on language in paragraph A of page 110.
And I'm sorry, I did want to say one more thing. I'm sorry, President Kukler. We had this in our past comprehensive plan. We had a bike plan. And, you know, we haven't revisited the previous comprehensive plan as a board. And I wonder if there's a reason why we didn't do anything with the bike plan. I mean, we did make Edgewood kind of a bike path when we redid that street, but I don't think there's a lot of call for it. I think prior to the comp plan, I didn't hear a lot of call for it. So I'm just wondering if we're putting something in here that's, again, upsetting a number of folks in the community, again, on the side streets.
I hear you. So I'm just looking for consensus, either people that want to keep it the same, make a tweak, or delete the paragraph so that we can move on. I've heard from Trustee Thompson, who I think wanted to eliminate the street names. I'm a little confused, Trustee Augustine, if you're saying strike the paragraph. I think you're leaning that way.
I mean, it's fine if we just delete the street names for now, and if we want to continue having discussion on it, I think that would be better. But I wouldn't want to designate or make it appear as if we're designating someone's street right off the bat without a lot of research on, a little bit more research on that, and feedback from those residents who'd be impacted.
Yeah, I don't think we're coming close to designating any streets, painting any streets, or eliminating any parking at all. Quite frankly, I don't see us moving great strides on a bike path that's through the neighborhood without being on our main street. But
may I offer?
Sure, please.
Maybe just the image is what's throwing everyone off, because it might be suggesting something that isn't even physically possible on a lot of these streets. Right. So I guess I offer that.
Yeah, I think there's two things that are throwing people off. The image, for sure, with the big green stripe in front of your house indicating, we all heard about, Chicago and their bike lanes and making sure you don't park in a bike lane. So the idea would be you can no longer park in front of your house. Your guests can no longer park in front of your house, and that causes problems. The second problem is that the paragraph specifically mentions streets that would make sense according to the consultants, and that's under A, where but runs north-south for most of the length of the village. Stone Avenue and Cosset Avenue can serve as a superstructure of a greenways plan. And we're trying to get away from committing to a couple of streets being in a greenway plan and keeping it more general, aspirational, saying if for some reason there's a great way to move bikes safely on a street, we should do it.
Right. Which in the case of Stone, you wouldn't have to do anything to the roadway. And it is, I guess maybe with exception of a few blocks, is a safe street for bikers because it's low stress, it's low volume. And
the problem we have with Stone, because I've had several residents write, Stone is a cutoff street. If I'm heading west on 47th Street and the light's going to change, I turn down Stone and go down 2 blocks and turn right to get onto Brainerd, so I avoid the red light, especially during school times. Those people are trying to get down to 55th Street. They're not looking for kids on bicycles. Mm-hmm. I'm strongly against Stone Avenue being the street we use. I think it's
yeah. So I think we can get to a consensus that the street names.
Okay.
We don't need the street names in there, and keep it aspirational about safe bike usage. And without a major invention, we'll be dealing with this at the next comprehensive plan.
Are we okay leaving figure 12 in the plan as aspirational, maybe showing Wyola instead of Stone?
Where's figure? What page is figure 12?
Figure 12, page 110, that shows the streets. As,
the map?
Yeah. Potential.
Consensus is comfortable with leaving the map that's on page 110?
Yeah.
Mr. Peterson, you have a concern? All right. Okay. Thank you. Moving on to transit, page 114.
On number one, President Kukler.
Yep.
This is a small section of town, and I'm not sure we want to get into I guess that will be eminent domain where we're going to take people's property away from them along LaGrange Road to build a sidewalk. I think that's, it certainly makes sense, but those houses, they're going to have a sidewalk literally right outside their front door. Where it's those last 3 or 4 houses along LaGrange Road before you hit the city of Countryside, where there is no sidewalk, and those houses literally sit very close to the street.
Yeah, could you direct me to what page you're on?
Page 114.
Okay.
Improve sidewalks to meet ADA standards. In some places, elements of the property acquisitions are necessary to add sidewalks because individual property owners' property lines go all the way to the curb.
All right, and again, we're not passing it, we're not doing an eminent domain, it's just for the comprehensive plan. And I would argue, and have talked to people that have disabled family members, they need to be able to wheel themselves down a sidewalk, and not having a sidewalk on LaGrange Road, not only for disabled people, for children and adults walking is a problem. And again, it's just aspirational. I would vote to keep it in, but I appreciate your comments, and I would ask other trustees how you feel on taking out this aspirational ADA and saying we don't need that. I think that's what you're saying, right?
I'm just saying, to me, I'm not sure we're going to ever have the money to afford it to do, and it is eminent domain. You're going to be taking away people's property, so we're going to go pay them for it and buy it. So the only way we're going to do that's under eminent domain to build a sidewalk. So we're going to get into those
again, I'm not sure that legally is true. You may be absolutely right, but we don't have to have the legal debate right now. All we're asking is for our comprehensive plan, do you want to have this aspirational language about ADA in it or not? And then we'll get trustees' comments if you want it out. So, Trustee Thompson, do you want to add anything more, or should we move on?
No, I mean, I guess I don't like that point in there where we talk about those, because it's aimed at literally a couple of houses on the street. So are we getting into that with this plan? Because that's what it says. It says we're going to buy property where the property line goes. So
okay. So I hear you, and I respect that. I appreciate it. You're for taking the ADA language out in number one. Trustee McGee, do you have opinion on one way or the other with regard to the language in number one, meeting ADA standards?
Well, if it's applying just to, the way I'm reading this, is just to the sidewalks where there are PACE bus stops, or that all the sidewalks in that area?
I can clarify that point. There's an earlier recommendation in the pedestrian connectivity section that talks about adopting an ADA transition plan. This in the transit section is specifically calling attention to those areas near PACE bus stops that are lacking sidewalk or have substandard sidewalk conditions.
I would keep it.
Okay, thank you, Trustee McGee. Trustee Augustine.
Yes, I see what Trustee Thompson is saying, and it can be a concern, but I think we can address it. I do think it's pretty essential to keep this in here and to really aggressively go after trying to make these things happen where we can. There's a lot of places where our sidewalks just trail off at the edges of our town. Recently, Countryside not only did that bike path, which I don't think we have the land for, but it's great, but they also added sidewalks, new in some places, and in some places they were never or they were reworked. In some places they never existed, so that you can walk up and down LaGrange Road. And I think that's really valuable for folks who come in and out of town who are either riding their bike, walking, or getting on those stops. So I would agree. I think we should keep that in, and we should aspire to.
Thank you, Trustee Augustine. Trustee Gale, any comments?
I keep it.
Trustee Peterson.
I want to see the ADA language remain.
Trustee O'Brien.
Leave as is.
Thank you. Okay. Anything more otherwise? Moving to roadway network and safety, 115 and 116. Trustee Augustine.
Thanks. I think this is a great section, and I hope that we can do more with that. Obviously, we know where our busy, dangerous intersections are, and I'm hopeful that we can do a lot more with them so that it's a safer place to
So you're fine with the language?
Yep.
Thank you. Anybody not fine with the language? Okay, great. Moving on to parking, 117 and 119. 117 through 119. And I can start out. I have concerns with removing minimums and parking for developments. I just think we have a parking shortage, and when we're removing parking minimums, we exacerbate it. I'm not sure how that's not straightforward to me, that if you increase the parking problems, you're increasing the parking problems. But whoever wants to be a trustee that speaks first on this, please feel free. Trustee Thompson.
Yeah, so there's several issues. I mean, if we look at page 117, we're talking about the parking plan, and I still think the parking study's got some issues with it and how we deal with the metro parking and the permits. But also, if you go to page 119, within the downtown area, there are about 500 public parking spaces are unoccupied during peak times per the 2022 parking study. Well, that also included Gordon Park. And we got to take Gordon Park out of the parking study, because I'm not going to park at Gordon Park and walk to the home to eat dinner. I'll go to Brookville. So,
and I agree, but I'm not sure. Again, I don't want to debate the parking study here debate, but it mentioned Gordon Park, but it really talked about the parking close to it, said that at the peak times it's 98 to 100% filled, and I think that's accurate.
Yeah, but yes, but we've referred to it in here, so I'd like to see that language gone, because I don't ever see during peak times 500 places in the downtown central business district open.
Can you just direct me to the page? I'm probably in agreement.
119, on the right-hand column, the second full paragraph.
Starting within the downtown area?
Downtown area.
Maybe, Deputy Director, Jones, you probably have no strong opinion about keeping that language in, right?
It's just background context.
Okay.
So
because
needs to be
again,
removed.
I'm not sure where the number comes from, and what if it includes in front of people's houses or what. So the idea is, anybody feel strongly with not removing the sentence that starts within the downtown area and goes on. There are about 500 parking spaces that are unoccupied at peak times per the 2022 parking study. Allowing existing residents to park on selected downtown streets, those that are appropriate with and are primarily abutted by residential land use, would not change total parking demand. In the long term, however, it might allow some properties to be redeveloped to multi-unit buildings with access to on-street parking and allow for greater density adjacent to LaGrange Road. Again, this is getting into the problems that I personally have. I find it to be more problematic if we're going to say, come build your building, your apartment building or condominium building, and we'll let you park overnight on our streets. And those streets that are now used and completely occupied would be taken off the market so that somebody who's buying an $800,000 condo could park whenever they want on the street. That's a problem to me. I don't see how that fits with what we're trying to accomplish.
And I would agree, President Kugler. you know, I can only think of literally one block or one street in this town where we should allow overnight parking, and that's along Bluff Avenue, where we currently already have an issue with not enough parking places for cars to park. We have, I guess it's considered a fire lane that's striped off over there, but there's really no residents across the street. It's that senior living home across the street, but there's where that really represents a problem when you build apartments that don't have enough parking places for them. There's not enough places to park cars unless you park them on the street. So it goes back to the issue with the east side as well. If we start allowing 3 flats and 4 flats in a very tight area anyway, there's no place for these cars to go. So I agree, not allowing on-street parking, and again, except for my exception for that one section on Bluff, I don't think it's a good thing for Village to do.
Okay. Would you be in favor then of striking the whole C, allow permanent overnight parking? Thank you.
Agree.
Trustee McGee.
Agree.
Trustee Augustine.
I agree. And back to, or if you want to go up.
Well, no, I mean, I want you to complete your thought.
Thank you. In point 1 on page 117, and we talked about this with Charity Jones last week, the particular thing that is trying to address is that some of these buildings, so they use the example, for example, when a hair salon closes, that vacant property cannot open as a restaurant because the restaurants require more parking, and there is no place to relocate additional parking. As such, current zoning requirements hamstring development in the West End by requiring like for business replacement. It's trying to address a problem, which is what the comprehensive plan does, and the problem is the large problem under the umbrella of parking. And so I'm glad we're getting the language struck about 500 extra spots, because I don't think we have any extra spots at any time. But I've been asking for more discussion on this very topic, and I think it's due. We have a desire to bring more building in. The problem is they want to build higher because they have to add. They need more parking, which we all want. But we kind of can't have our cake and eat it too. So as a village, we need to look at all these areas that are desperate for legitimate parking. And we need to just address that soon, because it's as I said last meeting, it's going to be a bigger problem in the commercial central business district of downtown LaGrange and on the West End if we do any development. And I just think that, I'm hopeful that we'll be talking about a number of things as a result of this comprehensive plan, and I hope that we're revisiting parking, because we can address this. We have some options, and I hope that we can tee them back up to be priority discussions for the end of this year and the beginning of next.
So circling back, you want changes, you said, to page 117?
I think it's a good idea to keep point 1 in for purposes of discussion. This being an aspirational, I think keeping it in allows that to become a commission discussion at some point, whether it's successful or not. Isn't the point at the moment. But I think we do have to figure out: are we going to negatively impact these commercial spaces, and then possibly have blight vacancies in higher amounts?
Okay. So we now have two things that we're talking about. We're talking about number 1 on page 117, which deals with eliminate parking minimums for occupancies existing commercial buildings in the West End. Again, this is aspirational. Living there, don't find it aspirational at all. Making parking more challenging, I think, is more of a problem than not. But I don't need necessarily to have it taken out. Though if I was to draft it, I never would have included it. The second thing we're talking about, and that is what Trustee Thompson brought up, which is removing C, allow permanent overnight parking for LaGrange residents in certain areas of the village. So moving to Trustee Gale. On those two issues.
All right, so maybe as a compromise, for number 1, consider adopting parking changes, consider eliminating minimums. For 1A, C, consider allowing overnight parking, and then you strike that 500 parking space language. Maybe we're all happy. That's what I'd support.
Thank you, Trustee Gale. Trustee Peterson.
I'm going to agree with that.
Trustee O'Brien.
I agree with Trustee Gale.
Okay, let me go down here. Any questions, concerns?
I didn't understand Trustee Gale's comment.
All right, let's first ask Deputy Manager Jones if she got what Trustee Gale was saying, or at least what you understood him to be saying. And then Trustee Gale, you can say if that's actually what you were saying. And then Trustee Thompson, you can comment.
Okay. This is what I understood Trustee Gale to be saying. 1A on page 117 to revise to read, consider adopting parking changes when revising the zoning code. Consider eliminating parking minimums for occupancy of existing commercial buildings in the West End. And then similarly on page 19, consider allowing permitted overnight parking for LaGrange residents in certain areas with striking the one sentence as discussed.
I'm not in favor of overnight parking on city streets, again, except for one block area. I just think it's a bad precedent to set, because if we're going to allow it in the east side, we should allow it in the historical district and just be done with it.
I agree with you, but I don't think we have to belabor it. I absolutely agree that we should strike out, allow permanent overnight parking, but that's not what Trustee Gale says. So now it's on to Trustee McGee. Do you want overnight parking to be considered, or would you rather no overnight parking? Okay. And Trustee Augustine, you are the deciding vote here.
I think we can eliminate it because we're having this discussion right now, and I think we'll continue to have it. So if this goes away, it doesn't make the problem go away.
Thank you. So C's
all
eliminated. All right. Thank you, trustees. So we're down to 117 to 119. We're now on page 120 to 128, which is under environmental sustainability chapter, the vision and goals, and then strategies. 3 sets of strategies are recommended, with recommendations to continue educating the public and working with other jurisdictions to advance all the goals and strategies of the environmental chapter. Under page 125, reduce greenhouse gas emissions, including increasing renewable energy supply throughout community choice aggregation, educating the public on resources to improve building efficiency, employ solar power, continuing to support decarbonized transportation, including in the village fleet. So, and I would just emphasize again, a lot of residents received in the mail the aggregation that was trying to accomplish this goal, that that company at no additional charge will be purchasing green energy. So with that, any questions? Next one, I don't think it's going to be tough. Climate change resilience, including continuing to diversify the village tree inventory and adopt further composting and recycling events. Anybody against trees?
Well, excuse me.
All right, I thought we'd get past that one. Stormwater management, including implementing infrastructure improvements as recommended by the ongoing modeling studies and upcoming long-range capital plan, creating zoning guidance for residential gray water use and stormwater management systems, and continuing to educate the public on stormwater management. It's page 127. Okay. Next chapter is economic development. It goes from 129 to 139. We start with visions and goals, and with fostering robust economic development. There's 3 main areas of focus in the strategies: a stable and balanced tax base and business climate, including developing a strategic plan for economic development that will include an economic incentives policy and implementing a vacant storefront program. I'm not exactly sure where these vacant storefronts are, but they get commented on social media, so at least there's a perception that it exists. So I'm fine keeping that language in, but that's page 135 and 136. Again, we had a facade loan plan. I don't know if it's still on our books. No one's taken advantage of it in years. Is it still on the books?
We do still have a low-interest facade loan program. I think the last business that took advantage was Blackberry Market.
Terrific. Zoning 137 and 138, including updating the way permitted and special uses are classified in the code, consolidating the village's various commercial and office zoning districts for clarity, addressing accessory uses for commercial businesses in downtown, maintaining the prohibition on first floor office space, allowing conversion of residential buildings to commercial uses in appropriate locations, and refining development review process to support economic vitality. So maybe we can go kind of just in order there. That's a mouthful. Special uses that are classified consolidated village commercial and zoning districts for clarity. That I assume nobody has a problem with making it more clear. Addressing accessory uses for commercial businesses in the downtown. Could you, Charity, explain, is that putting apartments above stores or what?
It's not. This is more about how businesses and small and independent businesses have needed to evolve, particularly in the retail space, to be able to provide either multiple kinds of offerings, which in our code would make them currently different kinds of retail uses, or retail coupled with some experiential component as well. And so this is talking about being mindful of that change in the industry in our upcoming zoning code rewrites and accommodating that.
Would we be then signaling we don't need retail? We could be a service, a beauty salon, a haircut.
No, this is more about ancillary uses related to the main business. So it's not the main use, like a hair salon instead of a retail space. It's you're a retailer and you want to be able to offer bouquet making workshops in addition to being a florist.
Okay. Anybody have any concerns with that? Maintaining the prohibition on first floor office space in the core of downtown.
So that, President, when you mentioned hair salons, but also we brought in like Stretch Lab came in, has been a very successful business bringing in a lot of foot traffic. And to see a lot of people go right to Wheelies when they leave there. So they're bringing in more money to the village. But trying to, as we have less retail really available, or we're not unattracting those businesses to try to bring them in like a hair salon. It's not really retail. It's just turning a lot of people that are in downtown.
Personal services like hair salons or fitness uses are in the service category as opposed to offices. This is really about continuing to prohibit professional office spaces, medical office spaces on the first floor in the core of the downtown.
Lawyers, accountants, doctors, insurance agents. Allowing conversion of residential buildings to commercial uses in appropriate locations. I assume that would be a house on Grange Road or something like that, that is right next to commercial, that would maybe make sense. Any concerns? Refining development review processes to support economic vitality. With this choice of words, how can you go wrong? Making the world better. It's hard to say no when it's worded like that. Any concerns? Next up is entertainment and events, including continually refining event offerings and working with the RTA. Again, the RTA was a funding of this project, and that's why they were mentioned, I assume, on projects to activate the LaGrange Road and Stone Avenue metro stations. So let's do that one, including continuing refining event offerings. Anybody against that? No, that's good. And is anybody against continuing to push the metro? It does not eliminate Stone Avenue, and continues the use of the train station I use 5 days a week, sometimes 4 days a week. But anyway, anybody against that? Okay, seeing none. The next one is the implementation chapter. The implementation chapter provides a high-level summary of costs and priority for the implementation of plans, 119 recommended strategies. It identifies the 3 top priorities as updates to the zoning code and design guidelines, the creation of safe and comfortable connections for pedestrians and bicyclists, and the development of an economic incentives policy. Is anybody concerned with the priorities being as those 3 listed? Trustee Augustine.
I'll just beat the dead horse here. You know, enable to have strong economic development. And we were very successful with the TIF that we did a number of years ago. A lot of people in this room tonight are familiar with it. And one of the things that came out of that was a parking garage. I'm not sure what we're going to be able to do for the West End. We certainly could use some more parking around here, but I think we have some creative options, at least initially. But if we're talking about prioritizing and having these priority strategies, I think within each one of them, we need to be talking about how are we attracting people? How are we going to grow certain other parts of town without having adequate parking?
Thank you, Trustee Augustine. I have a question. I don't understand development of an economic incentives policy. I'm not sure what that really means and what we're trying to do. I haven't even thought of what type of business we would incentivize to come. So I'm not sure how that's a top priority.
If I may, Mr. Mayor.
Sure, please.
That's the reason to work out the policy. This grew very much out of the discussion with the Plan Commission and the workshopping that we all did. The question being to incentivize or not. And it's a matter of policy. Some towns say, no, you know what, we're not going to do any incentives at all. Some say, you know, we're going to have a low interest rate loan program. Others throw money at everything. They know who they are. And so the idea is that this be something that's done deliberately, that you don't do it on a case-by-case basis, that before somebody comes to you and says, here's the public-private partnership we'd like to offer you. If you give us back half the sales tax, and then the negotiation kind of goes from there. The idea of doing this economic development plan is to have a policy decision in advance. So when we were talking with the Plan Commission, we were talking about, you know, how involved should the village be? Should the village be aggressive? Should the village, and they had, and it's, the text is in there and it's actually highlighted. They had a great notion, which was to be thoughtful, be intentional, and I forget the other one. I just wrote it down so I wouldn't forget it. But the idea is to codify that approach before somebody comes to you looking for money, quite honestly, so that you have a sense of how to do that. That's the idea of developing the program in advance.
And that's a similar program that we did with the movie theater with the entertainment tax, where half of the tax gets rebated to the movie theater. But I'm not sure what we are going to do as a priority. We did, the board was open to that at that time, adopted it. As I sit here, can't think of what we would discuss and what type of ideas we'd be looking to incentivize coming. I mean, if somebody said, hey, there's the Lexus dealer wants to come into town, I mean, sure, I'm not sure where they're going, but that makes sense to me. It doesn't make sense for LaGrange, but it makes sense why it would be in somebody else's village's comprehensive plan. I'm open for any trustee comments, though, on that, just leaving it as, again, it's the implementation chapter. It's 950. Leaving it as is or striking it?
I would think we could leave it as is. I think we never want to get too cocky, but I don't think we're going to need things like that in the near future. But it's always good to have discussions and to be prepared and to not take anything for granted. So I think it's fine. It would be fine by me to keep that in.
Okay.
And I would agree, leave it in just because you never know, so you never know. We may need it one day.
Okay.
I'd leave it in.
Okay. All good? All right. Implementation chapter as written. That takes us through everything but what we need to come back to on the housing issue, and we will come back on November 18th. We encourage all the residents to come and again share their voices, even if you came tonight, and bring your friends, neighbors, tell them we do want to hear from everybody. They can email us, they can come to the meeting directly, but do communicate your thoughts.
People can also submit comments through lagrangeforward.org. There's still a way to provide comments through the project website, and those are all sent to the Board of Trustees as well.
Okay, and so that may be, if you were going to email it, that's probably the best way. But again, you always are able to email staff and the village board off the webpage. So do we need to do anything with the motion to continue it to November 18th?
It could be just a motion to move to continue.
I would entertain a motion to move to continue the comprehensive plan to November 18th meeting.
I move we continue our discussion of the comprehensive plan to November 18th.
Thank you, Trustee Gale. Trustee Peterson. A roll call vote on that? A voice vote on that. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that passes unanimously. Moving on to public comments regarding matters not on tonight's agenda. Thank you. I don't know if the microphone's on.
I'm Lori Brown, live at 115 6th Avenue in LaGrange, and this will be brief, and apologize if you've covered this and if I should have made these comments at the beginning of the meeting. I just have a request for further and more explicit communication about the electric aggregation program. People have gotten letters. Some people have thrown them out thinking it's coming from a private company. Some people have gotten opt-in letters and aren't sure if it's opt-in. Some people have gotten opt-out letters, as I understand. I would like clarification on all those things. I know some people don't even know what electric aggregation is, and frankly, I don't blame them at all. And I just discovered there's good information on the website. Not everyone's going to go there. So I think in a letter, we should at least refer them to that. I would also like specifics on whether this plan actually is an improvement in the energy mix we're getting. I called MC Squared, and I understand if you subscribe to the plan, we're getting 6% renewable energy, 33% nuclear, 44% gas, and 15% coal. I'd like to see the numbers on what we're getting if we're not in the plan. I serve on the Environmental Quality Commission, and this is important to me, and it's important to all residents, I think. So that's just my request, better communication on this. Thank you.
Okay, just so you know that's going to be difficult. There won't be another letter going out, I don't believe. I'm not sure when the aggregation is going into effect. But maybe we first can address, was there multiple letters sent, or was it just one letter? I assume there weren't different conflicting letters sent, but I didn't send them, so.
No, there was one letter sent out specifically with correspondence, but there were several news flashes directing folks towards our website for additional information.
And I assume that the letter stated that, at least when I read it, that if you do nothing, you're opting in.
No. Mine didn't.
Wait, Ms. Brett, what we're going to do now, though, is we're going to have the staff answer. I know what your assumption is, but I think we need to clarify what.
So just to clarify, it was a letter, but there were different versions of the letter depending on whether you had opted in or opted out previously.
Okay, so maybe that's the part I don't understand. So if you could explain again for the people listening at home that now have gotten different versions of a letter. What happened if you previously opted in or opted out.
Yeah, correct. So each customer only received one letter. If you had previously selected and opted into a program that would have, you previously opted out effectively, you would not have been, you've continued to carry that opt-out provision. So you would have received a letter that says, if you're interested in opting in, you need to take action. If you're a normal kind of ComEd user, you would have been automatically opted in. So that's the letter that the majority of residents received, but each property owner received one letter based on their specific situation.
So again, to clarify, if you'd previously opted out, you stay out unless you opt in. If you didn't do anything and you were a ComEd customer, you would have gotten a letter that says, if you continue to do nothing, you are now opted in. So the default was opt in.
And that previous choice was made when?
By each resident.
Do we know, is it 2 years ago?
No, actually, some of these decisions would stem back all the way to 2014.
So again, if you opted out previously and you want to change your mind, you have to opt in. If you've opted in previously and you now want to change your mind, you have to opt out. And if you haven't done anything, you're going to be, and you got a letter, you're going to be opted in automatically. Ms. Brown's, I'm sorry.
May I?
Sure.
Could I ask that there still be some sort of communication clarifying this? I think a lot of people are confused.
Again, we could put something on our webpage.
Right.
You know, but as you said, not everybody's going to read the web page. We don't have the finances to resend out a letter again. So we can change the web page. We can do things that don't really cost us money to try to communicate it. And you know, I'm not sure if you're advocating that people should be opting in to the plan, because I doubt it's going to be less green. But
Well, I would like clarification on that, so I know whether to opt in, but
well, maybe we have an answer to that. I don't know. I don't know if ComEd shares that at all.
No, I don't have that specific ComEd usage information. I know it's a mix that changes, but as presented by the consulting NIMAC broker that does this, it's a much greener solution than what we would normally have.
The sole purpose of this was to go to green energy. So that was the goal. We hired the consultant with that goal in mind, and we hope that it's greener. But I guess I don't know how to find out for you ComEd's mix.
I have a call into ComEd asking what the previous mix was, but I haven't heard back.
Okay.
Okay. So, again, any way you can help us out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Michael Thomas. I'm a LaGrange Park resident. However, my parents live in the 100 block of Bluff, and they're lifelong residents of LaGrange. Just wanted to make one comment regarding the November 18th session. While I hope that you do listen to the residents on the east side, we, I think, would also like to hear and understand what your vision of the east side is and the future of the east side is, because that helped dictate what your comprehensive plan is today. And that would help us to better understand where the board is coming from. So I'm not sure, like what Trustee Gale mentioned from a committee of the whole meeting, or the format that you have for that meeting, if it will allow for you to be able to share your thoughts on how you came to that determination. When you look at what those, the potential of the rezoning, and we are not kind of speaking of what is currently there, just the possibility that you focused on the one area in LaGrange that is diverse and historically has been minorities who lived in that area, to make these 3-plexes and 4-plexes units. And the concern I think that is there too is that while you say that it could be for affordable housing, The fear that we have is that those builders would come in, tear down the current properties in the neighborhood, build up the 3-plexes and 4-plexes, and then charge exorbitant amounts of rents, which we could see that happened in the uptown apartments that we have currently here. So that would be a really grave concern and fear that I think a lot of residents have, and would really love to hear if you all would be able to share your vision of what the East Side would look like in your minds. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is also on the plan, but because a lot of things were said, I'd just like to know, is there a contact person that I can speak with? Because I'm not sure I'm clear on what's going to happen on the 18th, because there was a lot of conversation going on, and I don't want to take a lot more of the board's time, because some of the members have left. So what I'm asking is there a contact person that I can get more information in terms of how the meeting is going to flow? Are you just listening to our concerns? Are you listening with the expectation of modifying what is being presented? So I just wanted some clarity.
Sure. So, Dr. Boyd, maybe I can clarify some things now. We are going to continue to listen to the community between now and that meeting. And you can, again, through LaGrange Forward, put in emails and it will go to all the key stakeholders. So it's the best way to communicate, or you could email any individual on the board directly. My idea for that meeting would be, it'd be wonderful if we heard from the community, have now had a couple of meetings where we've talked about this. So we're starting to get to where we're formulating our opinions. We'll hear from the community again, and then we'll have the ability to debate or discuss what we think as a board and come to a consensus on the 18th. And again, some trustees talk more than others, but they'll, when it comes to a vote, there's going to have to be a vote. And, I think we'll hear as that goes on where the trustees feel comfortable and what they feel comfortable and why, they want the language or what that makes sense. So for me personally, since that last meeting, I had spent some time in the East Side talking with some of the residents, understood the issue with the non-conforming 3 flats, didn't really understand the push for 4 flats. I'm not sure legally how grandfathering works versus not being able to be grandfathered and things like that. So I'm hoping we'll get some direction from staff on different options that would be available for us. And then going forward. So things that I would like to hear from the residents are, and the trustees will have an ability to talk during trustee comments. Are you saying you don't want 2 flats where a single family house exists, or you don't want a 3 flat where a single family house currently exists? Or are you saying that if a 2 flat was there previously, I'm fine with a 2 flat replacing it? Or if it was a 3 flat previously, I'm fine with a 3 flat. What are residents thinking?
And I appreciate the listening piece, but I'm also hearing that there's a time.
Sure.
In terms of your 90 days.
Right.
And so then I go back to my question, if we're going to meet on the 18th of November, is that conversation between board and community members with the expectation of making some changes to the plan? And then if that is the case, is that still enough time in your 90 days? But then I thought I also heard, as Attorney Schuster, I also heard him say that one could remove the language about the East Side from the plan. So I'm just
So let me clarify, and then Attorney Schuster can correct me if I'm wrong. the idea would be to come to a consensus on the 18th. So again, to hear from the residents, hopefully beforehand at that meeting, try to come to a consensus. We need 4 for a consensus. If we get to the consensus on language, then we would direct staff to prepare it for being implemented on the 25th. Okay. If it's not a consensus at the 18th, there's a possibility that we still discuss it on the 25th and then do a special meeting in December, or that first meeting in December, which is the 90th day, I'm being told. So there's some talk there.
Within the 90 days.
Within the 90 days, maybe. Mm-hmm. And then the other thing was to remove it from, remove the east side. The problem that I have with that is I'm not sure where it gets brought up again. I'm not sure why remove it. First of all, allow the community members to be heard, and us as the members of the board to do our job and do it. If you kick it and you remove it, it then somehow has to get picked up, brought to the Plan Commission, go through the Plan Commission, and come back to the board. We won't have consultants. We won't, unless we pay for consultants and everything else. And so kicking it to me is not a good plan. That's kind of, we don't want to make a decision, we'll just kick it down the road. I don't see that as a good decision.
That we don't want to make a decision, and I'm hearing what you're saying about kicking it back and forth. I don't think that's what we're saying, and I believe we'll talk more about this on the 18th. But the other one more question that I did want to add is if we are going to also consider grandfathering the 3 or 4, the 3 units on the 18th as well, or is that outside of the plan?
No, that's what's going to be talked about.
Say again?
That is what's going to be talked about.
Okay, so that will be inclusive on the 18th.
Yes, that's what we're looking for people's comments on.
Okay, because that's not currently in my, I tried to read as much of the plan.
No, it's not in there. The concern
I wanted
was,
to make sure, because I didn't see it in the 150-some pages that I looked over. But in the event that it was, I wanted to know what page.
Yeah, I wouldn't limit it to the 150. If you have a concern that you want us to consider on the east side,
that is what's going to be discussed on the 18th. Not the other pages, but just the east side.
Well, there may be, I don't want to say that, but there may be something else somebody brings in while we're doing
absolutely,
it here.
Because I think the gentleman here had made some points as well, and I don't know if he'll be back on the 18th, but he had some concerns in terms of the plan. Okay, just wanted to verify that.
Thank you, Dr. Boyd.
And that will be at 7:30 as well?
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay.
Will that be here?
It will be. And with that, seeing no more comments on matters not on tonight's agenda, I would ask for trustee comments. Seeing none, I would ask for a motion to adjourn at 10:04.
I move to adjourn.
Seconded.
Thank you, Trustee Gale. Trustee Thompson. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? And it passed unanimously, and the meeting's adjourned at 10:04. Thank you. Are you tomorrow at?